Here we go.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Z-Talk Radio or its sponsor.
You're listening to Z-Talk Radio, the number one choice for music, sports, news, and talk radio. So keep that dial locked to ztalkradio.com.
Excuse me, hi. I wanted to find out about the Unlimited for Life guarantee.
Sure, Sprint is guaranteeing unlimited talk, text, and data for life.
Cool. And what if, say, technically you were not alive? Like, maybe you were undead?
Like a zombie.
Whoa, let's not go putting labels on people. I'm a zombie.
Unlimited from Sprint. It's guaranteed for life. Now for only $80 a month.
Hey everyone, welcome to Z-Talk Radio. I'm your host, Timothy Roxbury, for the Supernatural Realm radio show. We got got my co-host tonight with me, author Edwin Becker and his wonderful wife Marcia. How are you guys doing?
Fine. Hi, Tim.
Good evening, Tim.
How have you been?
Been doing good.
As good as an old couple can do.
Oh, jeez.
We have
I'm not. Okay.
we have a very good guest tonight. Why don't you go ahead and announce him who he is?
Oh, I know. I was looking forward to this one for a couple of reasons. Steve and I have a bond immediately because I know he's a survivor of a haunting, and I also know he wrote a book, which for a survivor takes a lot of courage. So I have a bond with him right away. What I didn't know was he's got I've got a chapter full of credits here on Stephen. I mean, he started an investigation group. He then went off on his own as an independent researcher. He's researched some incredible places that we're going to have to let him talk about, very active places. He was actually able to visit and investigate what I would consider the whole paranormal holy grail, which is St. Louis and the place where the actual exorcism took place for the movie The Exorcist. Now, radio, yes, he's been all over radio. He's been an interviewer and an interviewee. He's also an actor, and he's appeared in documentaries and collaborated to create other documentaries. He's been in magazines. He's interviewed people like Anne Rice, Geraldo Rivera. He's been on Fox. He's been on NBC. He's been on CBS, Discovery Channel, CNN. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, is there no end to what this guy's done?
I know.
He's an amazing man.
I know. I was looking at his bio, and he's got a long list of things he's done over the last years. It's pretty amazing. He's a pretty amazing person.
The only thing I want to say before we get started with Stephen will get a laugh out of this. After I got to meet him at the Paracon here in Springfield, and he's a giant man. I mean, my family thinks I'm intimidating at 6'3". No, I was kind of a shrimp. And then Stephen's got a son, Eli, who's like gigantic. But he's a wonderful man. And once I met him, I could sense immediately a goodness, a warmth, and the fact that, yes, he is the real deal. But I did not know much about his background. So it was a short time after this, in April, May, he was on radio. I don't know what program it was, Stephen. But the person who was interviewing you, it aggravated me because he jumped around. He didn't do things chronologically. So you were talking about a movie, and then you're talking about a documentary, and I'm trying to figure out, I want to know how you proceeded through your career, But he got to this point to where he said, and he had kind of a little bit of a lisp and a smoky voice, and he said, something about what I heard was the Blues Brothers. And I turned to Marcia and I said, the Blues Brothers? I said, what the hell did he do with the Blues Brothers? And it took me a while to figure out that it was the Blues Brothers. But that's how dumb I am. But with that, I want to say good evening. And I would like to proceed right from the beginning, how you got started, how you entered the field in 2004. With an investigation team. You founded probably the first investigation team in Missouri Paranormal Research. And how and why did you do that?
Well, there was very few teams out there at the time. I mean, very, very few. We were looking for help with our haunting, Edwin. No one seemed to be able to help us.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, so me and my smart mind, I thought, well, there's nothing I can't do, so I should be able to do this, right? Probably one of the worst decisions I ever made. I mean, anybody that knows that lives through what we've lived through, you cannot and should not investigate your own haunting. There's just too much connection there, and it will end up getting you in trouble. So I've never been afraid to say we made mistakes, though. Because I think from the mistakes that we made, if you share those, people can learn from the mistakes. And number one is don't investigate your own haunting. Not a good idea. So, and we were so naive. I mean, I literally, the first thing I did was read. And I just read. I didn't deal with any teams, anybody else that really had done this work before. That came a little later on when I met John Zaffis. And Johnny kind of took me by the hand and got me through this haunting in the right way. And I found out I was doing a lot of things I probably shouldn't have been doing. Like
I know
numerous-
exactly.
Yeah, like numerous EVPs every day. You name it, we did it. So I was fascinated with it. I was scared to the extent that it had frightened my children and tried to hurt my children. But then there was this other side of it that, and I had an attachment. But then the other side of it was I wanted to find out what this thing was. I wanted to find out answers. And sometimes you just can get yourself in so much trouble when you go looking for whys that you don't need to know.
Exactly. I agree.
I agree with that. I get a lot of emails from people who, because paranormal is now so popular,
Right.
they'll write me and they'll say, how can I get involved? And my answer is standard. Anybody can email me and test me. It's don't open that door.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people don't open the door because there are no absolute answers. There's nothing but confusion. That's how, I still see it that way today, 40-some years later.
I got a story to tell you about that because I had just been attacked in the shower one day. I thought one of the kids stayed home from school, and something came in the shower, and it literally attacked me. Left the house, obviously, because I was frightened. Ended up at a restaurant in town for lunch. People were coming in for the lunch hour, and I can remember sitting there and looking at them and wishing that I was them, in the sense that I knew something they did not know. I knew that this existed. I knew that there were things out there, that there was times when we were not alone. I knew something like a simple thing like a shower could turn into a nightmare. And I wanted to be them. I wanted to go back to the time when I didn't know these things existed. And I think what you're saying is very clear. Be careful what you ask for because you're going to get it. And when you get it, it might not be something you want. And once it's there, you're not going to erase it. It changes you.
That's for sure.
Stevenson,
I think
I
people
have the same experience.
Go ahead, Marcia.
Yeah, what is it about the shower, Marcia, do you think? You think it's because all of your security is down at that point?
Yes, you're very vulnerable. And I
Very
think
vulnerable.
That's it. Yeah. And they want you that way. Mentally, physically, spiritually, they want you vulnerable.
Mm.
And I think it's just humans. It's human nature to feel that way when you're alone. You're in water. We didn't have a shower in those days. We had only a bathtub. Mm-hmm. So getting out quickly was not easy.
Right.
They want to hurt you. But you saying you going to the restaurant and sitting there and watching the people, that's exactly what I did, except I went to the church steps. And you want to feel like you're a part of the normal world for 5 minutes. But I agree with you.
How did you deal with, even it was true in our day, but it's even true today, the ridicule. People say, you're freaking crazy. You need your head examined. And it hurts. How did you deal with that?
I've gotten a thick skin over the years, though. That doesn't bother me like it's in the beginning. In the beginning, those were fight words,
Yeah.
But as time passes, I've learned that, it's not our job to convince anybody that our experiences are real, and it's not our job for them to get them to understand what we went through. It is what it is, and that is the attitude I take. I was telling somebody the other day I should probably have that tattooed in my head. It is what it is. I'm not going to change it to make anybody feel more comfortable or more secure. If they come to me and they want to know the story, I'm going to tell them. And if they can't accept it, well, that's up to them. It's not going to change.
Sound like us. Yeah.
It's not going to change that experience for me or for my family. But there are people out there, on the other hand, flip that coin, and there's other people out there that need to hear what we've experienced, and they need to hear what we went through because they either are going through it or they have those questions on their own. So, there's a lot of people we can help with the message that we have. Our message is really, if you think about it, take the paranormal out of what we say. negative attracts negative, positive attracts
I
positive.
agree.
Your attitude is what's going to take you down a good road or a bad road. I mean, there's numerous messages within the haunting itself that you take that haunting away and those messages still stand. So even if somebody comes to us and they listen to the haunting side of it and they don't, necessarily connect with that, there's a good chance they might connect with some of the other messages that go with it.
Right.
I agree with that. I agree with
I
that.
do too.
If your emails resemble mine, which I'm sure they do,
Mm-hmm.
you realize that this activity is worldwide
Sure.
and that people need help worldwide. And fortunately, most people only have an occurrence. So
Right.
I'll get a lot of emails about. It's amazing how many times they open cabinet doors or they're fixated on opening a door or footsteps. But it's usually a single occurrence, and I usually tell the person to ignore it if it doesn't frighten you. Ignore it. Say a prayer, and just ignore it. Leave it be.
Mm.
And sometimes these things are. I have one woman where the footsteps are only in a couple months a year, the same months every year.
Probably an anniversary. or something like
Weird stuff. But I always tell people, like you, I'm not out to make anyone a believer. I can just tell you my story, and you can do what you like with it.
But I agree with you, Stephen. I think it validates a lot of people.
Right.
And there's the good in it.
To go back to when you were going through, I mean, you guys were going through it in the early 70s. Go back to that time and think about how you would have died to just have somebody say, I understand you because I've went through this.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah,
Tremendous.
when psychic Joseph DeLuise came through our house and they felt what they felt, and then he brought in the exorcist, and they validated us, and they said, no, you're not crazy, and this is what we feel.
Right.
It was like a huge weight came off of our shoulders.
Mm.
It was
I can remember, Edwin, when I went through that. I had a picture. It was a fiery picture, and it looked like a gathering of people. The people were like photographic. It was so clear, and there was an image above it. When I remember the first time I showed that to the priest was when I really realized validation, because I showed it to the priest, and he turned the photo upside down, pushed it across the table with me, and says, that's the mockery of the crucifixion. I don't want to see that. You're in trouble.
Well,
that would scare the hell out of me.
yeah.
But I'm not sure, my father, pastor, looked at me and said, take your wife and go seek psychological help. That was his advice to us.
Well, I had family around me. I had my dad was going through everything, my mom, my children. I had friends going through it. Then you had the other family as well. So I mean, all of us were going through it. So I was surrounded by a whole lot of people. But it's so funny. You can, at the same time, and then if you're at the center of the storm, which I was at the center of the storm, I felt like I was trying to help everybody, to keep everybody going, to protect everyone. It was a tremendous amount of pressure. So,
Yes, I felt the same way.
that moment that you get a priest and the priest says, I can help you. Oh my gosh, that weight came off his shoulders, At that point, I was ready to throw myself on any altar I could find. Pretty much literally. I was at that point where it was, it was almost a daily scream for help.
Our daughter was born and was a year, went to a year old where we lived. She had no memory of this. In fact, she didn't know the whole story till the book was published in 2011. How did your children cope with this, and how do they cope with it in retrospect today? How do they look back at it?
It's interesting because of the three kids. They look at it in different ways. My daughter chose religion to an extent of she's very, very, very religious. But it's where she finds her solace, and it's where she found her answers. My middle son, you'll love this. He's working on his doctorate in chemistry. So he's the scientific side. He's the one, Edwin, that would tell you, okay, we were sitting there, Dad, and this happened. However, it could have been, let's say, gases that caused hallucination. He's always looking for the scientific explanation to it, right? Yeah, I know I laugh at him too. And then you find there's my youngest son, who you met, who is studying for. He's in the police academy, and
he's a quarterback's nightmare. I mean, I think
yeah,
defensive end. It'd be holy shit what I run.
Yeah, he is. I mean, can you imagine he's going to be a cop?
Oh man!
Yeah.
Oh boy!
I go, yes sir, whatever you want, sir.
He's courageous. I'll tell you that. My son-in-law is a cop, and I've watched his personality change in the last 3 years. That is one tough, unpredictable job today. It's one I wouldn't do.
No, I wouldn't do it either. But it's a calling like the priesthood or anything else is. It's definitely a calling. And with Elliot, he's going to spend you have to spend your 5 years as a patrol officer, and then you can go into your specialty. Elliot's going into narcotics.
Oh man, no shortage of work there.
No, he decided to do that because growing up, he's seen too many young people destroy their lives. So I'm proud of him, but he looks at the paranormal from more of a centered stance. I think he's probably deals with it more healthily than the other two. He's got a pretty much a good handle on it. So I got all three aspects actually. So
I chuckled when you said the gases part because from your scientific son, because that was my excuse with the bathtub plug. I said sewer gas. Marcia would say, it's doing it. I'd say, bullshit. Sewer gas.
Right.
And I maintained that until I couldn't stretch it any longer, and I had to admit it. And
well, isn't it amazing how, as men, Marcia, I'm sorry about this, but you'll probably agree when I say it. Isn't it amazing in men how stubborn we are and how much we can rationalize when it comes to a paranormal experience?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we don't want to, at least I did not want to admit that there was something there that I couldn't control. I
think that's it, that we can't control. I mean, how did we go out into the world and tell people we're king of our castle, but we lost control?
Right.
That's right. It put me eventually it put me in despair. I mean, I was, it destroyed me for a while.
It does. It does destroy you, and it takes that security away from you of how you can protect your family, and how, if you can protect your family. I know that's how I felt, because I felt all of a sudden, maybe especially being a single dad, Edwin, because I was a single father. I had this feeling of, how can I possibly take care of these three people if I can't give them a safe home?
Right.
Yeah, that's got to be tough.
I felt the same way.
I felt the same way, but differently in that, I leave my young wife at home with an infant,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to go to work, and I refused to face that for a while. So
right.
A lot of the activity she'd report to me, I would just brush it off and tell her no, it didn't happen. It was actually my denial, because I didn't want to feel like I was incompetent as a man, as a father, as a provider.
I would find so many reasons for it. It was funny. Something would happen in the basement. Well, that's the basement monster, kids, and everybody's afraid of the basement when they're little. Well, come on downstairs, and I'll show you that there's nothing there. And a sound, a door slamming. Well, that's just the wind coming through the house, kid. Not a problem here. Anything, any little thing that happened, and any major thing that happened, I would come up with something, even to the point when the house started screaming. The rationalization there was, this is never going to happen again. It's a one-time event. We're going to be through this fine. That is not likely to happen again because it never happened to me before in my life. Why would it happen again? I'm king of my castle. Nothing's going to chase me out of my home. It's like I went through this series of over ridiculous rationalizations, and obviously when something screams at you, it's coming back after you, and it's going to probably scream at you again.
That is the one thing that even when I read the Union Screaming House, I get goosebumps. Because the one time I can honestly say that I had real fear was the day after our exorcism. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. Marcia and I were in bed, and we heard this wailing cry of anguish. I mean, it was loud. It resonated throughout the whole apartment. Marcia heard it. I heard it. I tried to record it, and I failed. But given what we had experienced up to that point, I knew that these ghosts sort of like they do things repetitively. So I thought to myself, oh, my God, what is this what we're going to wake up to every morning at 5 in the morning?
Right.
And fortunately, God blessed us because it never happened again. It happened one time. But I see Union Screaming House, and it's just,
Yeah. In our case, the screaming would be male, it would be female, and the most disturbing, Edwin, is when it would scream like a child, a little girl.
Yeah, that would just tear your heart out.
And my father was over one night, and it did that. It was screaming like a little girl, and he tore that house up. You'd have to know the man. The man's done nothing but raise children, grandchildren all of his life. I mean, this is a person who truly loves children, and I think maybe that's why he chose that one to do for him. But it tore him up. He still talks about it today, but it tore him up because there was something that he could hear, but he couldn't find this child to help it.
Yeah, that has to be a terrible, terrible feeling.
Sure. Ours did a lot of arguing, hateful.
Yeah, that captures our hearts because our daughter, well, I was an abused child, and Marcia was an abused child, and our youngest daughter fosters and has adopted abused children. So we're very much aware of what can go on, and it's disgusting. I'll send you a copy of my book, The Death List, because it's a novel, but it could be real and should be real as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
That's my attitude toward people who abuse children.
Yeah.
Well, Boss Tim.
Yes.
You're going to take us into a break, I think?
Yes, I am. You are listening to Supernatural Realm Radio Show on the Z Talk Radio Network. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, I'm Jackie Vinko. Confidence while singing was never a problem, but confidence in my smile was. That's why I chose King Orthodontics and Invisalign team. The board-certified doctors of King Orthodontics are ranked in the top 1% of Invisalign providers in the country. The entire team is so nice. With locations in Wexford and Pittsburgh, they are convenient for anyone in the area. Call now for a free consultation and find out why King Orthodontics is the secret behind Pittsburgh's most confident smiles.
At Armstrong, we're proud of the great customer service we provide.
Our hard work has been nationally recognized. Armstrong has received the 2012 Best Customer Service Award for service excellence among independent cable operators.
From our blue booties
to our 24/7 support, our customer service sets us apart from other providers.
That's the Armstrong experience.
Armstrong, one wire, infinite possibilities.
And welcome back to the Supernatural Realm Radio Show with our guest, Stephen LaChance. Edwin, how are you guys doing?
We're doing good. I'm enjoying this. I mean, I'm really enjoying this. I get to take Stephen from the beginning to the end, I hope, with this amount of time. And my second question, actually, is you were in a paranormal investigation team, and then you decided to go into private research.
Mm-hmm.
What was that about and why?
Oh, it's a question. I was dealing with, all of a sudden, when people started hearing about the Union case and realizing that I was an investigator in that sort of sense, more so than any else. The cases that started coming in were more, they were more violent in nature and more desperate when I started dealing with the people. And there was times when, I would have the team out with me and it would be, pack up the equipment and that's all I need from you. Because as you don't want to poke sticks, right?
Right.
Which was very hard for, to have a research team there and tell them they can't research. That was one of the things. Another one of the things, and Edwin, I've never talked about this on the air. I'm glad you asked the question too. I had a member of the team. We went into an investigation. It was a home. We went into the bedroom of the home, and she was with us, and the suicide note was written in a glow-in-the-dark pen on the wall.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, this young lady had put a shotgun into her mouth and blew her head off. So she helped decipher the suicide note. 2 weeks later, she was at her home, and her ex-husband showed up, and he had a package for her, was what he told her, and he pulled out a sawed-off shotgun and blew her head away. And at that moment, now, you got to understand, whether it was the case or it was not the case, whether, I went off into left field, I was still dealing with the union case itself, in many ways.
Right.
A lot of the kids were being affected. And by the way, this young lady grew up on the captain's land, his other home, that owned the union land, by the way, that caused the problems at the union house. So when that happened, I felt responsible, extremely responsible, and I really almost had a breakdown over it. I felt like I had to clear people away from me, or I was gonna get them hurt, and that was, I think, maybe wise to an extent. They didn't understand it when I did it. They felt like it was almost like Dad deserting them. They took it very hard. So in that sense, here I was going through these very, very hard time, trying to figure out my own stance and my own feelings on this, and having them hate me at the same time. I was deserted pretty much from everyone I knew and everyone that I called friend. It was a very difficult time. But, that was the reason I did. Now, knowing that, I was still attached at that point to an extent. And knowing the way things work, you and I both know that we're put in the path of things a lot of times like this that are going to mess with us. This one I just couldn't handle.
Let me ask you a side question. I'm a believer that demons, and there are a lot of them, if you studied demonology and the hierarchy
Absolutely.
of hell. I'm a believer that demons, all they really want to do is kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Get you to commit suicide, get you to eat yourself to death, get you to overdose, get you to do whatever your poison is. What do you think about that?
Bacon and cheese.
Yes.
Well, seriously, I mean,
Good answer. That was a great answer.
Because, that was mine because, in 2011, I mean, activity was going on all the way up till then. As a matter of fact, in 2011, I had to undergo major heart surgery, which they did not a 4-way bypass, they did a 5-way,
God.
and, right up to what's funny was leading up to that surgery, we would go to the kitchen and we would find all the kitchen doors and drawers open, and we would find our butcher knives lined up in the floor. This would happen on a daily basis. But I do believe that because, I died on the table.
Yeah,
when I came back, the attachment was gone. So, this is what I tell people. I mean, you got to understand, when this thing attached to me, I had to die to get this thing to leave me alone.
That's something.
I can't help but ask you this question because I don't meet too many other people that have died, and I died twice. What was your feeling when you died?
I didn't do the white light thing. Everybody, it wasn't the white light. I was falling. And I think, talking and doing the research that I've done on NDA, I was actually coming back in my body when I became aware. I slammed back in my body. It hurt when I slammed back in my body. But here's the thing, Edwin. When I hit my body and I came back into my body, the thought went through my mind. I know why babies cry when they're born. It hurts.
Ain't that a son of a bitch? Because my feeling was almost somewhat similar.
Mm-hmm.
I felt euphoric. I was in severe pain. I I was getting electrocuted. I died actually twice. I died last year too, but when I was 19, I got electrocuted and my heart stopped. I felt complete euphoria.
Yes.
And and then when I slammed back into my body, I never thought of it as why a baby cries, but I know why a grown man would cry. You know,
yeah, I know.
It hurt.
But the thought that came to me, and I dealt with that for 6 months now. I had another paranormal experience in the hospital, but what he came to me was, it took 6 months to come to this conclusion. Was, I was led to come back and live this life further, but under the understanding, because it was, okay, Stephen, you're going to be able to come back. You're going to be able to live your life, but you're going to have to keep in mind life hurts. Because up to that point, I was the guy that would always go, oh, my God, my wife left me. Oh, my God, I'm living in a haunted house. It was like, put the kick me sign on my back, kick me harder. Oh, woe is me. Since that death, I'm a different person. And since that understanding, because I now live life with, okay, some days are going to be challenges, some days aren't going to be fun, but, the only way that we can grow in this life is to have those experiences and to understand that if you're going to live life and you're going to live life to the fullest and not keep yourself locked away, you're going to have to prepare yourself that sometimes things are going to happen to you that are not going to be so pretty.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. You couldn't have put it better. That's exactly how I feel every morning. I thank God for this day. I don't give a crap how it turns out.
Right.
I'm happy just to live this day, and I'll thank him at the end of the day for whatever happened. It does give you, once you've been dead, it gives you a whole new perspective.
Yeah, it does. And I've talked to other people that have died just like you. And, people that have died, there's a change that happens within them. They're different. They're different afterwards. And it's hard to explain. Maybe because we rode the roller coaster already. I'm not quite sure.
I'm not either. I do know that I'm forced to try to find humor in everything.
Absolutely.
Even in the paranormal, it's a dark, murky subject, but I always try to make somebody laugh, inject a little bit of humor into it.
Right.
I don't know if it's the endorphins that feel good to my heart or whatever, but I try to laugh a lot. I try to have fun with my family, with my friends, or whoever. And I do look at the world a whole different way.
I knew, obviously going into heart surgery, you're going to die.
Yeah.
That's a given. It's going to happen, folks. You go into heart surgery like that, they're going to kill you for at least a little bit. I remember saying goodbye to my family before going in, and I kind of choked up a little bit. But the thing I remember the most about that feeling was I didn't want them to go. I didn't want them to go, and I knew that when they left me, it was possibly the last time I was going to see them. If to go through that experience, and it leaves you speechless, because you at that moment realize that the people that matter most to you are what this life is all about. It's and it's not really about you; it's about them.
You are so correct. I mean, I don't know how long I went to a psychologist after I had a near fatal heart attack, where it was torturous, only because I had this severe myocardial infarction, and I wound up at a community clinic, and all they could give me, thank God it was invented by then, was TPA. But they thought they didn't know what dose to give me, so they gave me a smaller dose. It didn't work within the allotted time. So they brought in a grief counselor, and I said goodbye to Marcia, and I said goodbye to my daughters, and I gave away all my jewelry. And it was such a sadness that I couldn't talk about it. They had to send me to a psychologist, and much like probably you experienced the same thing with your haunting, much like a haunting, you can't talk about it right away. But the more you talk about it, the more therapeutic it is. And today, I can talk about dying. But
I have an easier time talking about dying than the haunting, to be honest. I mean, really, I do. Yeah, You know,
you're right. During Paranormal Witness, they had a stop camera on me 3 times.
Me too with the haunting. The haunting. Because you just choke up.
Yeah, your emotions are raw.
Mm-hmm. You do. Especially when I get to the part when my kids were locked in a bedroom and I couldn't get into them to get to them, and my daughter was screaming on the other side of that door, and that door wouldn't open. It was like it was concrete, Edwin, and I was throwing myself against the door, and I could hear her scream. People ask me what is the most horrific or scary moment that I've experienced in the paranormal, and I always tell them that, because you cannot imagine the feeling that you feel when you hear your child screaming and you can't help them.
I couldn't even imagine that. That's torture.
Exactly.
You went on after this to when I'm reading your bio, it talks about a number of locations I'd really like to know about. But did you go to like Pythian Castle and these places before you wrote the book?
Zombie Road I chose because it was an urban legend I had heard about, and I thought it would be fun to go disprove an urban legend. So it was out in the woods. I don't know if you know about Zombie Road, but it's out in the woods about 5 miles. So it was a walk. I thought it would be, it's Halloween time. It'd be kind of fun for the team. We'll go prove this urban legend, and nothing there. I thought it would be a walk through Pooh's 100-Acre Wood, and it turned into the Blair Witch Project. It seemed like, but the thing is when we start talking about the hauntings, you got to remember, once touched by the spirit, always touched by the spirit. And it seems like these places they're like magnets and they attract us to them, doesn't it? And, Pythian Castle, I didn't step into the Pythian Castle till about a half hour before I shot film in there. But the first time I stepped in the Pythian Castle, I walked by the stairway, and I heard a voice that said, "Come up here, boy."
Oh, boy.
And I backed up, and I walked back, and I heard, "Come up here, boy." And, that's where we got, that's where we came in contact with a spirit that was bigger than me. We got actually its handprint, and I could put my hand inside its hand. You know how big I am, so, know incredible that was. But that was that spirit. Now, I'm not psychic, guys. I'm not. If I ever tell you I'm going to read you, it's because I'm going to play with you.
Right.
But, I got to tell you, that voice came out of nowhere, and it was something. So Pythian I had never been to before, until I started to film it. But I know which one you want to hear about. You want to hear about the Exorcist case.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that one, but I still have a question, because you just said you were rolling film on Zombie Road. Is that how you collaborated with the Blues Brothers?
Yeah, the Blues Brothers. You cracked me up. They had heard about the work we were doing. They had seen some of the photos. One photo in particular was by the late Tom Halstead. Tom just died in February. That he took at Zombie Road of the children standing in the shadows in the trees. And they wanted to see if they could come with us and get some of this stuff on film. And that's how we collaborated, and we got together and we started working together. Actually, the Children of the Grave, which is what we were working on there, I actually was the first television show I had a writing credit on as well. So it was a very cool experience, invaluable to me as far as career goes.
That's incredible. Yeah, you're right. I want to hear about the St. Louis and the location of the exorcism.
You save that one, because I got something. That story, when I tell you, I have information on that case that I have a place that no one's ever been but me. So
I know that. Let me ask you another question. Then we'll leave that one for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What caused you to sit down and write your book?
Friends. Christopher Booth was really pushed it. He was like, people that knew me, that saw a haunting, A haunting, you know this when you do television, they have a certain finite amount of time to tell a story. And in a hauntings case, they're a little bit different than Paranormal Witness because they sugarcoat things a little bit more because, they feel like, well, we're sponsored by Kodak and we got a family audience and we got 48 minutes to tell the story. So what happens with that is you get the Disney version of the story for a family audience. And the Union story was never meant for a family audience. As far as, I hate to say this, but they use it for entertainment. But, that story should never have been told in that form. And people that knew the true story and knew what had happened were like, you have to tell the story. Especially now since it's been done that way. And I'm not knocking New Dominion because I thought New Dominion did a great job for what they were trying to accomplish. However, they were right. There was a lot missing. There was a lot missing. The heart and the emotion was missing out of it too. Because a haunting is not just about the scares. There's a lot more emotion to a haunting than just it scared me. I
agree. I agree. I mean, I don't think there's anything horrific in my book.
Mm-hmm.
And my book was actually my therapy. It sat for decades.
I think people are surprised when they read our books and they find themselves, having tears in their eyes. Because I don't think they expect that part of emotion to be there. They don't understand, that there's a tremendous feeling of despair and loss that goes along with these things. Especially, I remember in my case, Edwin, they ask you that moment. Do you remember that moment when you got in trouble? And I remember that moment when I got in trouble. It was my sister had died. She died at 32. She died of a heart problem that we didn't know existed. So she laid down for a nap and didn't wake up. I remember being at the side of her grave, and this is right before my wife left me with 3 children. I mean, this all happened very close together. I remember standing at the side of her grave, and I remember not believing in God. I got mad, and I turned my back on God. I wrote, those of you that read the book, how horrible it was. But I want to tell you something that when the publisher read that part of the book, they made me tone it down. They said, Stephen, you have to tone this down because if somebody reads this, they're never going to go any further in the book because they're going to hate you from moment one. Because it was such a anger and a hate and a feeling of you betrayed me that I cannot even begin to tell you today. Because at that moment I was like, you hurt me this bad, because my sister was probably the closest person to me in the world that close. I was like, you hurt me this bad, you're never going to hurt me again. And I believe that's the moment I opened the door for things to go wrong. And it was interesting.
I remember the moment.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I remember the moment I succumbed to it. Marcia couldn't take any longer, and she went home to her mom, and I was living there by myself, and there was activity. And I can remember going to work, taking my sandwich, and I went down deep into the bowels of this building, and where they had the boiler. I sat next to the boiler when it was winter time, ate my sandwich, and I buried my face in my hands, and I just thought, what the hell am I going to do? I mean, I was a broken man. And
right.
I didn't think God had forsaken me. I certainly thought the church did. I mean, I've never been a follower of organized religion since.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was broken at that point. It was like, you can ask Marcia, it's 47 years now, and that was the lowest point in our marriage.
Yeah.
Now we'll argue about dinner, and we'll argue about what kind of car we're going to drive or whatever. But no, we've never been to that low point at any other time.
But it's that low point that it's once you hit that low, that's what opens the door. And interesting, Edwin, when I went through, you call it a blessing, call it an exorcism, but the truth of the matter is the first depression was lifted from me. I remember going to my mother's house, and I was telling her what had happened, and she goes, Stephen, how'd you get this low? And I said, and I broke down. I broke down and I started crying. I said, because, he took my sister from me, and then, and then the wife thing happened. But, my mother looked at me and she goes, he took her from you. And it was a really strong moment for me, because you got this parent that has lost their child, and she looks at me and he goes, she didn't take you from her. She goes, he accepted her. There's a big difference. And I was like, but it was such a strong moment, because I realized the strength of my parent, along with that. And I'll never forget it. And it was a life-changing moment. It changed how I think about a lot of things, actually. So, it was very, very moving, actually, too. So, but there you go.
Marcia's got a question.
Yeah, I do. This is actually from Tim.
This is from Boss Tim. Ask your own question.
He doesn't want to talk to us.
I just didn't want to interrupt you guys. I read that you had a paranormal group. When did you? Can you tell us a little bit about that, and when you decided to start that?
I started it in 2004, and I started it to help take care of the haunting, to take care of the haunting personally. That's why the group was started.
What was after you started the group? What was your most memorable or most scary experience, I guess, other than your own?
Oh, that's a hard one, buddy. This is a group that is, you got to remember they've participated in exorcisms and such. Exorcism is not horrifying by any means. It's horrible.
Right.
Just that there's a difference. I think, I remember Zombie Road, and standing in the middle of Zombie Road that night in 3 a.m. in the morning, and the shadow figure started coming out from behind the trees, which we got on film. And it wasn't just one shadow figure. You're talking, it was like 15, 20. And they were there, and they were looking at us, and you could feel their eyes upon us. We're out in the middle of the woods, nowhere. I got a little uneasy, I got to admit.
I'm laughing because if they came out of the woods like that, they'd be looking at my ass as I ran away.
Well, I mean, but you got to understand. I mean, this was bluff roads down there at the time. If you ran, it was very dangerous to run. Because the road would just in the middle of the dark just fall off to nothing. So there was no running really. Edwin. I mean, you really couldn't run. And so what if you screamed? No one could hear you. So it was the only comfort in that is that we were in a group of people. But you listen to the original tapes on those, and when the shadow, you can hear. Just watch Children of the Grave preview, and you can hear when the shadow figure step out from the trees, because you hear people going, "Oh my God!" You hear some other things that probably shouldn't have been on film. I was actually surprised those made it, but but people were actually, they were frightened. As a group, we were frightened. I'd never been through an experience like that where single person was, just riveted to their spot. And I guess it was the sheer amount of figures that were there. Because usually you're dealing with one shadow figure, one thing. You're dealing with 15 and 20 at one time, and you got to kind of ask yourself, okay, what's going to happen to us next?
Right. We experienced that at Waverly Hills also. There were a dozen or so shadow people during the night that we spent there.
Sure. Waverly Hills is definitely another place like that. Definitely.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what makes you guys or allows you guys to do that, because I just can't do it. I won't expose myself. I can't even watch our YouTube video without emotion surfacing.
It was there's selfish reasons, Edwin, because I'm one of these people that doesn't, and this is how I get myself in trouble. And I want you to realize that you're probably making the right decision, because this is how I got myself in trouble. I was looking for answers to why.
Yes.
You know, and the further I went down that road of why, the deeper and darker I went. And I'm telling you, that rabbit hole goes pretty far down.
I know. I mean, that's why my advice is always don't open that door, because Marcia and I studied. We were closet paraholics for decades. We never stuck our head out into the paranormal, but we wanted to know what affected us, and what was it exactly, and what capabilities did it have. And when I see people like yourself going out there, I think it's great, because when you go on an investigation, the validation that you provide some people and the education that you provide others is something good. But when I think about a shadow person that's it's out there, you can't really determine its strength. You don't know what kind of attitude it has, what its intentions are. You certainly can't control it. I don't want to confront anything like that.
Right. Multiply that by 15 to 20, and you understand what I felt.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, Stephen. I would love to be on one of the teams for actually two reasons. One is to help someone that was in the same place I was.
Exactly.
And the other reason is I would really like to kick some ghost butt. I'm mad. I am mad. I would, I didn't get to kick them back then, but I'd like to kick a few now. So
right. More so the after, well, obviously, we're talking about my heart and stuff. Some of the more extreme cases now I'll consult on. But if I get that feeling there's demonic involved, Edwin, I will pass them on immediately, and I will not talk to them until it's over. Because I will not take that chance of going through something again that I'm going to have to die to get off my back.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you probably know Ray Rucker from Ghost Raps, and he picked up an attachment. It took him a year. He said it almost killed him health-wise to get rid of it, and he'll no longer go out in the field.
Right.
Well, they destroy you from the inside out. That's how they do.
And it's so funny because people don't understand that. And we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. And, I remember the first time that I connected the paranormal with the health issues. When I did it, I was told, you can't talk about that. You can't say that. If you say that, it'll ruin your career. No one will ever talk to you again. You can't tell people that what they're doing is going to hurt them. This is their hobby. And it took a long time, before it was accepted that, when you would say, okay, these will and they do affect your health if you're not careful. It took a long time for people to be able to accept that news. It's not good news, especially for you hobbyists out there. This is not building trains. This is something that can hurt you, I guess, unless you're sniffing the glue. I got to laugh there. Good.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. There's so many people out there. They watch these shows on TV and they get the meters and go out with their friends, go ghost hunting, and I don't think half of them don't realize the dangers of doing doing things like that.
More importantly, now I look at what I do is it's more of a ministry of education.
Right.
And I do look at what I do as a ministry. I mean, if you think about it, I've probably put more in without trying. I've probably put probably more butts of church pews than most ministers. If you think about it, I mean, because what are we talking about? And the thing is I do look at it as a ministry. I look at it as, the investigator that sits and they listen and they see what we have to say. It's important because they make that connection all of a sudden that, hey, maybe if I do this long enough, I'm going to come across this. And maybe I should listen to Stephen when he tells me, okay, this is how you do this. You put your ego aside and you back off, and it's time for someone else to step in. If you can't handle something, don't go into it. I think those are very important things, and those are very valuable things. And if it is saving lives, and if it is saving people's souls, and if it is saving peace of mind, and if it is saving families, I'm going to continue to do it.
Good for you.
Yeah, good for you. I always bristle when I hear someone who says, let's say they're a demonologist. Okay, lately that label's been thrown around on people.
Yeah. A lot of people.
I don't know how they get awarded the label, but they label themselves. And I'll ask them just casually, even on the air. I've asked a couple of them, what's the difference? How do you see the difference between a malevolent spirit and a demon?
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't hear the word power, fierce, something enormously more powerful than you can imagine, then I know that they've never faced a demon.
Unexplainable. It's unexplainable to be able to explain a being that is 5 steps ahead of you at all times. It is unexplainable to feel the fear that you feel from something when you're standing toe-to-toe in it, and you know that it is capable of hurting you at a moment's notice. By the way, Edwin, I did stand toe-to-toe to one, and the priest actually got on to me. He was like, you never do that again. But, the thing is, these people, you hear demonologists, and I know there's one demonologist out there right now that I interviewed, and I asked him, I said, so tell me about some of your cases. And he went, cases? I don't go out and work cases. I'm a demonologist. Give me a break. Well, how do you know? I mean, how do you know? I mean, that makes you and me a demonologist, Edwin. And Marsha, you too.
Well, I always said that anybody who's raised if you've raised at least 2 teenagers, you're a demonologist. Automatically, if they made it through to their 20th birthday, you haven't killed them and they haven't killed themselves, you're a demonologist.
There you go. There you go.
Because I just think the label's been taken too lightly. Much like you see in the news, a husband loses his job, he comes home, he kills his family. That's been such a common scenario in the last few years. But my belief is that, we see the final page of the story. What the man did is he got an attachment. Probably his relationship started to fade. Then his job performance started to fade. And he destroyed his whole life. And then that, the end of it becomes suicide and killing your family, which is not a human trait. It's not human instinct to kill your family or your children.
Right.
I see the word demon as soon as I read that in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yep, that's a demonic situation.
There's so many of those situations out there that are demonic in nature that people don't even make that connection with. They just look at it and they say this horrible person or this horrible event. They do not make the connection. And I think what you said there, that this is not a human trait. When you see something or you hear something that falls outside what you would say is normal human trait, then you have to go, this is probably something more than that. And that's the thing that, I preach that all the time, and it's like, if you've ever, I had the pleasure of dealing with Father Ricardo Reese, who was one of the exorcists to the Vatican. You want to hear some scary stories, just talk to one of those guys.
No, I don't want to hear any scary stories.
Well, there's no getting away from it.
I mean, it's a reason, and I hate to admit this, but I will. Honestly, I'd probably like to have a signed copy of your book, but I wouldn't probably read it. Because it would give me PTSD. It would.
Well, that's the thing, because we do suffer from PTSD. And it's like, and I've even described it before as, we've went through the war. We came home, there's shrapnel backs, we're no different in that sense. I mean, it was a war that we fought, definitely. And, it left its scars, and those scars are pretty deep, Edwin. And it's like I even went to a psychologist. I did the psychologist thing, and and he told me I was high functioning PTSD.
Yeah, you have to be. I mean, I can't tell you. Only my daughter can tell you, Catherine. I was happy writing my novels and comfortable and living in what I call novelized nonfiction. And my daughter says, "Publish your book, Dad. Publish that."
Right.
I said, "No, you do it." I didn't want to be exposed. I didn't want to be questioned. And of course, my youngest never listens to me, and she didn't. And if you look at the cover of my book, you know what that is? That's my rough mock-up. I gave her my rough mock-up, and the only thing she changed was the name at the bottom.
Wow.
And it was supposed to be As Told to Catherine Higdon. And then I hid. For about a year, I hid. I turned down radio because I couldn't talk about certain things without my emotions surfacing.
Right.
And it's one of the things us survivors share. You know, it's something that I could see in your eyes when I met you.
You see it within. It doesn't take very long with us to talk to each other, and I've done this with the some of the others too. It doesn't take very long to find that thread that connects that, and unfortunately, it is that emotion, and it is that sadness. There's a certain amount of sadness there within that, and it's hard to explain. When I wrote The Uninvited, I finally sat down to do it, Edwin. I wrote it in a month. Absolutely in a month. And if you ask my children, they will tell you it was the most horrible month they ever spent on Earth. Because it was that emotional. And not only that, I had paranormal activity surrounding me as I was writing it. Which was not good. The birth of that book, I went through hell.
That's probably the beauty of the book. I mean, no tears for the writer, no tears for the reader.
But when you come out of it, and that's true, because when you come out of it, you feel the certain amount of cleansing. A certain amount of cleansing was done. I was so naive though, Edwin. I thought, wow, I got this off my chest. This is great. What I hadn't realized is, like Lorraine Warren told me long ago, it's not over, honey, by a long shot. And even after the book, it wasn't over, honey, by a long shot. I mean, the healing had just started at that point. There was a lot to come.
Yeah, you always know it's there, and even 42 years later, every now and then, what Marsha and I have deemed travelers. A traveler will come through, and you get that feeling. I don't think anything bad can enter our house because I've got more blessed items than the Pope.
Oh, gosh, help you! I know.
And Marsha makes rosaries, and I've got 22 of them in the bedroom.
Right.
But every now and then, a spirit will come through, and we'll know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll come and it'll pass, it'll go. But that feeling never leaves you. That what if it doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
I just never want to be put in that. It's the reason I turn down investigations, and I can't go to any of these places. Now you and I share a wonderful friend. In fact, she's probably the reason that I even came out in the world. My grandkids put a gun to my head to do Paranormal Witness. I mean, right. I must have pissed off all their producers but one. I insulted him. I did everything. I ain't coming out. I ain't telling the story. And finally, this Mark Lewis, who was just very kind, and my granddaughters, they said, Papa, you got to go on Sci-Fi. Sci-Fi rocks. So I went on Sci-Fi, but afterward I hid, and it was Annette Munich, and you know her well, and I know her very well.
Absolutely.
But I didn't know her at the time. She contacted me, and I'm a little bit agoraphobic. I like to be in my comfort zone, and but she contacted me with this. I was told it was a cause for Shriners Children's Hospital, and for whatever reason, I could not say no to Annette.
You can't say no to Annette.
No, and not because she's so persistent, because she's so damn kind, and she's a public relations person. She's a whiz at advertising, and she's just a wonderful person all the way around. But she's the one that talked me into coming out in the world. I think I did one radio show with WGN, and then after that, Annette put me on some radio shows, and now I'm very comfortable, obviously. But I credit her. She's just Annette, if you're out there,
we love you.
Love you for sure.
Yeah. Hey, you know what, Ed? When you said there that I thought was interesting, we're both agoraphobic. I do a lot of traveling, but when it's time for me to leave to leave my comfort zone, Annette's on the phone going, "Okay, are you packed?" There's this coaxing that goes on to get me out of my comfort zone. And my comfort zone is my home. This is where it's blessed. This is where it's safe. To get me out of my safe zone, it takes a little bit of coaxing. And God bless her, Edwin. She's there every time to go, "Stephen, you ready to go? Come on now." And it's almost like talking the hamster out of the cage, And she does that, when you said that, I was like, isn't that interesting that we're both like that? And I used to not be like that. I was a corporate trainer, by the way, Evan, and I used to travel quite a bit, and that's another thing, folks. Got to stop and think, why would somebody give up being a corporate trainer for this? Why would somebody give $100,000 something year job up for this?
That's a great question.
Must be a passion, right?
We have a little bit of resemblance there in that I started my life as a musician, entertaining audiences until I met my wife. And then I went into computers, and I wound up, in the end, holding huge seminars,
right.
And talking to people. And I love talking to people, and I love traveling. was all over the United States, and nothing was better than that in my professional life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough to talk. Try talking to people for 8 hours at a podium about computers. I mean, man, you talk about boring? Holy crap. But then after I had my heart attack, I went into a shell. I went into my shell, and I feel just very comfortable. And I've become a bit agoraphobic.
Yeah. Well, just know you're in good company there. You're in good company there.
The only thing that could get me out of here would be, if somebody made me some gigantic, if it would benefit my grandchildren, give them, let's say, a great Christmas or something like that.
Right.
Okay, I'll ride the wing of an airplane.
Right.
But other than that, no, I ain't going anywhere.
Right. So there you go.
Tell me more about Fear House and the Discovery Channel.
That was an interesting thing. They came to us. They asked us if we would do it. I sat down with the kids first, and I talked to them. And I said, this is what they're offering, for us to do. And what do you guys think about it? Now, mind you, there's a lot of people out there who think we got paid to do that show. We didn't take any money. Not at all, actually. We went to a bed and breakfast. Oh, I lied. We got lunch.
It's like Paranormal Witness.
Yeah, exactly. We got lunch. But the thing was that we decided to do, and why we decided to do it was was that there might be some other families out there that need help. There might be some other families out there that are going through what we went through, and it might be good to go out there and tell our story in maybe the hopes to make them feel better. And another thing was the third thing, that maybe we can connect with other people like us. Now, that is very important, especially when you're in the middle of it. All you want to do is you want to find somebody else who's experiencing what you are. So I think the kids were pretty ahead of their time where that was concerned. So we went ahead and did it, and that's why we did it. But the thing is, Edwin, if you ever watch that show, I had broken my tailbone.
Oh God!
I had broken my tailbone the week before. So if anybody's ever broken their tailbone, there's nothing you can do. I mean, there's nothing you can do. So and I had to sit in a chair for 8 hours and be interviewed under.
God.
So what
That
you're seeing is about 8 Vicodin. And when you see the show, my pupils are dilated to the size of quarters. So anybody, there's some insight. If you ever see the show again, watch. My pupils are dilated. And this is why, because I was stoned, absolutely stoned. And it was nothing I could help, but I had to get out of the pain.
You've done a lot of film.
I do have a question.
Good, Mark.
You appeared in the Booth Brothers documentaries,
Mm-hmm.
Children of the Grave and The Possessed.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you feel? Did you like doing that?
How'd you get into it?
I don't like being in front of the camera as much as I like being behind it. It's as a matter of fact, I had some things to do with Haunted Boy, and I also had some things to do with Children of the Grave too. You never saw me in front of the camera. I did some background work. I would rather be behind the camera, either directing, writing, that sort of thing, casting, than being in front of the camera. The research kind of was fun. So it took a little bit to get me in front of the camera. Now, I know what you're going to say, Ed, when you were an actor at one time, and that's true. But I'm 40-something years old. It's, let's leave the camera for the young kids,
I stole a line. I use it all the time. I stole it from a dad, actually. But I tell people, I got a face for radio.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Every time I see and I won't watch myself on television. I won't. It just creeps me out. And it's like, and every time you do it, Marsha, you see yourself get older.
I swear to you, they have played that episode 429 times. I'm like, please stop.
You know what she did? We were married a long time. We came home and she saw some of the footage. Honest to God, she saw some of the footage, and she's got fibromyalgia, so she got a mobility problem. She immediately started using the treadmill, and it went to 10 minutes, to 20 minutes, to 30 minutes, and walking. And in the next 6 months, she lost 65 pounds.
Right.
You do that in your 60s.
So that old fat woman on there, that's not me.
You do that in your 60s, and I was amazed. I was amazed.
I was going to say, Marsha, you look like a healthy, fit woman when I saw you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I got up to about 3 miles a day.
Wow.
I'm off of that because of the pneumonia, but I'm starting to get back into it.
I gained some weight back, Marsha, because I found the wonderful world of casseroles. It's a can of soup, a starch, a meat, and cheese.
Oh, yeah. Do amazing things with
amazing
things casseroles are. So I have to watch those.
We had to leave our house because in Branson we lived there 8 years, and after they put the pacemaker in me, I'm always a worst case planner.
Right.
So I said to my cardiologist, I said, "What happens if this thing goes berserk?" He said, "You got about 15 minutes to get to a good trauma center." Well, out in Branson we were 40, if it was Branson traffic, oh crap, we were 45 minutes away. Probably 5 minutes to crow flies, but 45 minutes away with the spaghetti roads and the traffic.
Depending on the seasons too, right?
Oh yeah, and so we moved to Springfield, and we're here in Chesterfield Village, close to Cox Trauma Center. But unlike Branson, we can get everything delivered here. Pizzas, Chinese food. I put on 13 pounds so far since we've been here.
I have not.
I got one for you, Edwin. It's called, and this is a commercial. It's called Jimmy John's. Those guys, if you don't got one down there.
Yeah, we got a Jimmy John's.
Yeah, well, you know what? Those kids deliver you a sandwich within 5 minutes.
Really?
Yes. You hear the door slam and you hear them running up your walk, and it's unbelievable. Poor Elliot.
I got to ask you a question because it's something that I've kind of realized myself. I know which one I would choose. Are you more comfortable being the interviewer or the interviewee? Which do you enjoy the best?
Interviewer.
You like to ask the questions.
If you noticed, there's a couple. I got to be careful when I'm on radio shows too because I'm very strong. And there was a couple times I flipped the coin on you tonight and started interviewing you.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable and at home on the interview side. Always have been. I'm a good interviewer too. I had to be, well, obviously you see in my resume, the type of people I've interviewed, you have to be a good interview to stand toe to toe, especially, Geraldo Rivera for one, he's not an easy interview, but
yeah, I would think so. I was going to ask you about Geraldo and about Anne Rice.
Well, Geraldo had just released his book, Hispanic. Every radio and TV show he was going on, he was fighting with people. Now, I had just did Mike and Juliet in New York at Fox, and Geraldo was doing that on Friday. I was there on Tuesday, and he did it on Friday, and I interviewed him the following week. So I had 2 minutes before we went on air. Hit the common ground with him. How's Mike and Juliet? Threw a couple producer names out. He was like, well, you were there this last week. I'm like, yeah, it was a very nice show. So by the time we got on air, we were buddies. And Geraldo probably gave me one of the best interviews he's ever given. Not once did he argue with me. Not once did he fight with me.
Come on, Steven. Shit, you're 6'7" and built like a brick house. If I was Geraldo, I wouldn't fight with you either.
Yeah, well, Geraldo fight with anybody, but it was he gave one of the best interviews he probably has given. As a matter of fact, his publicist after it was over was like, "Wow, that was something," and I was like, "Yeah," I said, "We got along." And I got to tell you, Edwin, I was up pretty much the night before thinking this is not going to go well. But the thing is hit common ground. You hit a common ground with someone, and it's easy to take that conversation off. The worst interview I ever did was Peter Criss from Kiss. That man couldn't even talk English. And they told me he had been through rehab, and I think he was probably still on the methadone because I couldn't understand a word he said.
we got a lot of people like that around here that are on it.
I want to call out if anybody has the courage enough to interrupt us, you can go ahead and call in because there's a call-in number.
Not yet. I have to ask Stephen a question. I'm supposed to ask you about the beret. I'm sorry.
Oh man, yeah. Children of the Grave. We decided that the fatigues would be a good idea. We're Missouri boys, so we were going into the woods. So fatigues and combat boots, we're great because we carry everything with us. Somebody got the idea, that the berets, and I'm going to say this word, and this will give you an idea. It was Christopher Booth because he says those are sexy. That berets would be a good idea. Only a man that transplanted from England to L.A. would think that berets on a 6'7" giant are sexy. I give him trouble about this all the time. So yeah, I wore a beret and it wasn't pretty. And that's what they're asking about.
Hey, Ed, why don't you go ahead and take us in the break?
Okay. You're listening to Supernatural Realm with our host, Tim Roxbury, and our special guest, Stephen LaChance.
What'd you think of the reports about?
Sorry about that, guys.
All right, Marcia's got a question, but I'm going to just push her out of the way for now. You have to tell me. I mean, we're counting down the last half hour. I got to know about the location in St. Louis of the real exorcism.
Well, somebody came to us from the Catholic Church in St. Louis. And they asked me, they said, would you like to go to the locations of The Exorcist in case? This was in 2005. I'm not so sure it was such a good idea, Edwin, that I did it. It was probably one of those things thinking back on that I probably shouldn't, because all hell broke loose in the Union case right after that. But the first place we went to was Alexian Brothers Hospital. Alexian Brothers Hospital obviously is where the exorcism was completed. The wing that the boy was exorcised in has actually been torn down. However, what most people don't know is the chapel still stands in the middle, where they would bring him down and try to give him communion and such. The pictures that came out of there's a picture, and I'll have to show it to you sometime. It looks like, it depends on who you are. And I never tell people this, so I'm saying it on the air for the first time. Some people that look at it will see a kneeling nun. Other people that look at it will see a demon. Nothing. It's either or. It's never. I don't know what that is, or what is that? Is it a blur, or what? It's either, oh, that's a kneeling nun, or that's a demon. It's interesting. I have to show it to you sometime. Then the next location we went to was St. Xavier's. Is another location where it was the church where they would take the boy to. Church, beautiful, gorgeous church, by the way. And the build-up was to this last location. Last location we went to was to, and I got to be careful what I talk about, because, I'm kind of under secrecy on the location, but it was a hospital. It was a hospital not too far from Alexian. And they took me in, they said, we want to show you something. Now, I had always heard there was a rumor, there was a floor on a St. Louis hospital that used to house a priest. It is quite, it is like the holy grail of paranormal here in St. Louis. I went into this hospital under heavy security. You had to get into the hospital. We walked right past the elevator doors to this other door. It looked like a regular door. They opened the door, and there was a small, like, freight elevator behind the door. We got into that elevator, and we went up to the 4th floor. Got out on the 4th floor, and there was nobody there. And I said, well, there's nobody here. And they told me that the floor was deserted in 1983. And it literally looked like people just picked up and walked away from the floor. Everything, there was still paper on the desk, by the way.
Wow.
It was really strange. And I said to her, well, what is this? And she said, well, this is the floor that we house the priest. And I'm like, the priest? I'm like, so, and she goes, well, I'll give you a hint. On his deathbed, he looked at the nurse and he says, I'm going to kill you.
Oh, Jesus.
And in that moment, I knew where I was. I knew where I was. I was, I got to tell you, I got a little excited, because people have talked about this. No one's ever been able to access it, let alone many people didn't even know it existed or where it existed. The rumor was that if you ever watch The Exorcist, at the end of The Exorcist, the priest takes in the demon. The story is that the priest that participated in the exorcism of the little boy, one of the priests, actually this is the one that took in the demon. From that point on, they housed him in this hospital until 1983. Freaky story, right? So anyway, they had a day room behind this hall that we're walking down. I have pictures of this place too. I'll have to show you sometime. And we're walking down this hall, and I hear, and he had glass in the that separated the hall from the day room, and I heard knock, 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 knock. So I walked a little further to see if it was me, and it wasn't me. So I stopped and I put my hand next to the glass, and when I put my hand next to the glass, something pounded on my hand. And I pulled my hand back. It kind of scared me. But, the thing is we got all the way up to where in the energy, and I know you understand this, Edwin, the energy was built to a frenzy level, probably more of a frenzy level than I've ever felt energy build, right up to these double doors. And I said, what's past those double doors?
Wow.
Can't take you in there. Why not? Paranormal activity there is extreme. Why? Because that's where his room was.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. But, it was interesting because no one's ever been there. I am the only investigator in the paranormal that's ever been to this location, let alone probably one of the few people that even know it exists. And it was, I got to tell you, it was a life-changing experience, to be there. But the weird thing is when we were on that floor, they kept asking me, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? And it was after that the Union case blew up. But however, it was after that when we got a good priest that was able to help us, and Father Ricardo Reese from the Vatican. So go ahead and make your connections. I don't know if they were testing us to see if what it was that we were going through. I don't know if they were testing us on the building. My feeling is they wanted to get to know us a little better because they had heard what was going on and they wanted to see it firsthand. So there you go. There's the story.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Annette said that you had a letter from the Catholic Church.
I have more than a letter from the Catholic Church. I have a 156-page document.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
It's more, yeah, I mean, they did it as an apology. I got it the day before Thanksgiving last year, and I got a knock on the door, and I was handed this book by FedEx. And I opened it up, and it's, it was on top of it. It says the Roman Catholic Church, and it is an evaluation of the Stephen LeChance case. And it's written by a demonologist for the Catholic Church. He's a priest. It has been it had to go through several people before it was even released to me. But they go step by step through the case, and they give the church's opinion on what they believe happened, how it happened, how we got in trouble, the different things that, some of it that, you just deep down knew. And it's amazing that, it's those things that kind of nod at you, and then they come out and say, this is what happened. So it was interesting. The Catholic Church has deemed the Union haunting a case of demonic infestation, oppression, obsession, and possession.
That document is golden because, from what I know of the Catholic Church, and I'm born and bred Catholic. I was an old Latin altar boy. I know the church well. They put nothing in writing.
They put nothing in writing.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even want to comment. When it came to our exorcism, Joe DeLuise actually asked the Father Joseph Wood, who had a radio show on NBC.
Right.
That was his good buddy. So he said, will you come in with me because we sensed something demonic on the first floor? Father Wood said no. There's no way the Catholics want to get involved. And he said, besides, there's way too much red tape. But for you to have a document like that, that's golden. I mean, and
one of the first things that's said in the document is if there's an apology, and the apology is, because we went, from 2001, me trying to find help, because even after I left the house, the nightmares and the sleep paralysis and people, my family was grabbing me at the front door at night to keep me from running out screaming and, in these nightmares and stuff. I mean, from 2001 until 2005, and when Linda came to my doorstep, who was the other woman that lived in the house, and she had a gun behind her back and she was there to shoot me in the head, and then she was going to hang herself in the house. During all of that, it was next to impossible to find help. So the first pages of it are an apology, and the church never apologizes. That's what gets me too, is an apology from the church explaining that this document is to answer some of the questions that we may have, And it's for us to have an understanding of what happened, and it's also an apology for not getting to us in time. Now, the interesting thing about the end of the document also says that this document can be used in any way we want to. I could publish this document, Edwin, if I wanted to. However, there's things in the document, and you know this by going through what you went through, there's things in the document that are pretty personal. Not for me, but for other people that, the church doesn't stop when it gets uncomfortable, folks. They just dive on in, I mean, they'll go there, and it's funny because during the document, it'll even say to me, Stephen, put your personal feelings aside. Put your personal feelings aside. And then they get into stuff that I don't want to go through. I mean, there's some of the stuff that could be harmful to people that are very dear to me that went through this haunting. And that's why, no, I'm not going to publish the document. No, there's very few people that are going to read the document. However, the document exists, whether you want to believe it or not. It is what it is. There you go. There's people that have read it. I have Brain here from Facebook. Brain read the document today. That's just amazing. The Catholics won't even comment on someone who's seen an angel, much less a demon. I know. It's, and the thing is I knew the moment I got it how rare of a document that I had received. So I don't know. Did I help them in some way by going to those locations, and in return they couldn't get to me soon enough, so this is what they did for me? You could connect them maybe. Is that too far of a leap? I don't know. But the thing is here I have this 156-page manifesto, and they go through everything. They don't leave anything untouched. I mean, there's things, and the scary thing about it, Edwin, there was things that are in my new book, Blessed Are the Wicked. And there's nobody has read that book but my publisher. And there was things in there that I had covered in Wicked that they couldn't possibly know that I had covered in Wicked. And some of the research I did into angels, in the fallen, that they couldn't possibly know I did, but they were going back and they were telling me the exact same things that I had just written in the new book.
Guys, we got a question in the chat room. Jenny Gurney would like to know, or if you want to touch on it, Stephen. She's asked what happened last night. If you want to maybe talk about that, if not, that's okay.
I don't mind. I never mind talking about anything. Okay. First of all, I'm an open book. Anybody that knows me, there's nothing that I'm afraid to talk about. If you have a question, I don't care how hard you think the question is, I'll always answer it. Last night I did a lecture at the college here in Union, Missouri. I went to do the lecture. I did the lecture. The lecture went great. I got to the end of the lecture. I looked out of the corner of my eye, and there sat the landlady from the Union House. I turned around. I said, let me see how much I got left for questions. It was 30 minutes. I turned back around. She had her hand raised, and I went straight to her, and I said, you. I let her stand up. She said, do you know who I am? I said, yes, ma'am. I know you're Darlene Peters. You're the landlady from the Union House. And then she started in. Mm-hmm. I told her at that point, I said, I don't mind giving you the floor. I don't mind you giving your side. I said, because quite frankly, I would like to hear your side, because I would like to hear what happened to my family and why you did what you did. Then she tried to attack me personally. I stayed calm. I stayed professional. I stayed nice. At one point, she said, sir, you need an exorcism. And I looked at her and said, ma'am, I've already had one.
Wow.
At one point she said, because the lady that lived in the house, the family that I was helping, she was married to an African-American man. Darlene Peters stood up in this crowd and said the problems that Linda had in the house was because she was married to a black man.
Wow.
She insulted not only me, she insulted the whole entire audience there. It was mob mentality at that point. People were screaming and yelling at her. People actually got to see how crazy she is. They got to see that what I wrote in the book is absolutely true. This woman is a lunatic. She is feeding families and children. She avoided questions. She wouldn't answer the questions. I would. The thing is, I stay calm and stuff, and the crowd was ready to kill her. They had to sneak her out the back last night. And the thing is I don't like conflict. I don't like drama. I'm not one of those people, but I don't like people that avoid issues. If you have something that you want to ask me, you ask me. Right. I'll answer it. I don't hide anything. And so I tried to give this woman the floor. I tried to give her the chance to say her side of things, and all she did was wanted to insult and scream and shout and got nowhere. And it was actually pretty sad. It was probably one of the saddest evenings I've been through. It was disappointing to me because I had looked forward to coming home and talking. And the talk was really great, but it was very hard for me to take questions when I had a lunatic woman there screaming. It just, and at one point I looked at her and I said, the answer to what you're asking me is it is what it is. I'm not going to change this, and I said this tonight. I am not going to change anything about what happened to myself, my family, or my friends to make you feel more comfortable. Anybody that asks me something along those lines, I'm going to tell you the same thing, because that's the truth. However, you want to ask me and you want to talk to me about details, you want to come to me and you want to give me.
Okay, I just lost. Steven, you there? Steven. Okay, what happened? Just lost the call. Stand by, everybody. I just lost the call. These guys. Not sure what happened, but we'll be right back right after this. We got about 10 minutes of the show. So.
Tim is still on.
Yeah, I'm still here.
You're on?
I had to go on break. I don't know what happened, but stand by here.
You sound like you're out in traffic somewhere.
Yeah, you're breaking up now, Tim.
I'm not sure what happened, but the call just dropped. You guys there?
Yeah.
Now we are.
Okay.
Steven, why didn't someone take her out? I mean, why didn't
that was the frustrating thing. There was two employees of the college that were standing in the back of the room. She had made the racial comments and other comments that I not only found offensive, but the whole crowd did. Not once did somebody from the college step up and try to remove her from there. Interesting enough, Edwin, after the whole thing was over, the PR woman that was at the back that worked for the college went up and started patting her on the back and consoling her.
Consoling her
in front of this crowd, that had been, that had been, completely and totally and absolutely offended by her. And that's the thing. If you want to come to me and you want to give me your theory on something, I'll listen. And what I was going to say is, people don't realize that the survivors, us that are survivors, we're always willing to listen to someone because we want to understand what happened to us. We're looking for that answer. And if you think you got that answer, well, then come on board and let us know what you think. We're not going to yell at you. We're not going to scream at you. We're not going to turn you down. We're not going to say that you're crazy. We're going to listen because, believe it or not, we're the skeptics of the world because we want to know what happened to us. And believe it or not, we've tore our cases apart a lot more than anybody else could.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I mean, the only people you have out there, I mean, what I found is people are well, she had a good motivation because she probably holds a grudge over what happened in Shadow.
But and you're right, Edwin. I realize that, but that's why I gave her the floor. Mm-hmm. And not only did I give her the floor, I immediately gave her the floor.
Well, you should have gave her the taser is what you should have.
Yeah, I should have. I had no idea it was going to go down the road that it did. I thought I was being polite. I thought I was doing the right thing by saying, okay, you're here. I'm glad to see you're here. It's good to see you. You have the floor. Let's hear your side of things. That's the way we should be. And Edwin, you would have done the same thing, I'm sure. Because, nobody's afraid to hear of anybody else's thing. However, she's got some questions she needs to answer. Right. She has numerous families that have been affected by this, and she keeps moving these families in with small children. Those are the questions she's got to answer. If she wants us to answer questions, she needs to realize that it's a two-way street, and there's some questions that she's going to have to answer as well. However, what she left that crowd with was this woman is nuts. There you go. And, and if anybody, you go to my Facebook wall and see it. I mean, overwhelmingly, that's what they said. I remain calm. I treat her with respect. As a matter of fact, at one point, this girl jumped 2 rows over and was going to beat her up. That's how bad it was, this mob scene. And, the people that were with her grabbed her and pulled her back. If that girl would have got to her, it would have been my responsibility to come off that stage and break it up. I don't want to see anyone hurt, not even her. I don't let people yell at each other. I don't let that happen. But, when it becomes a mob scene like that, what do? So I stood there and I maintained my ground, and I maintained my professional attitude that I could. I treated her with total respect. Never once did I disrespect her.
Right. That's
obviously she had an agenda.
Right.
She was sniping.
Yeah, it was definitely an agenda. And the college has to answer now for their employee who thought it was okay for her to stand back at the back of the theater while a whole room of 500 people was being offended. And asking, can somebody remove her? They even were asking the college, can somebody remove her? Mm-hmm. And no one would remove her. And this was after, the bigoted statements and stuff like that. And, and at that point, the college has to answer, well, okay, why was their person not removing her? And more importantly, what did they think they were doing when at the end of it, they were up and consoling her? They even escorted her out the back door, Edwin.
Jeez.
That's amazing.
Guys,
that's amazing.
We got
obviously, someone else isn't going to want to lecture there.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
On any type of controversial subject.
Absolutely. Edwin, the thing is I have always been I'm an alumni from that college. I have always been a great supporter of that college. When I was in broadcasting, every month I would put that college on the air with me and I would promote them. Every chance I get on my Facebook wall, and people know this that are on my Facebook wall, and something is going on at that college that can be promoted, I promote it. That goes bye-bye now. Until a good answer is made and an apology is made. And I don't care if the apology comes to me. I don't care for the apology. But who does deserve the apology is the audience that came to see me. My audience deserves an apology from that college.
Well, you're being very kind because you deserve an apology.
And in closing,
so certainly,
guys.
Okay, Tim. Let me say one more thing. I've got, a stack of index cards here. We didn't even get through half of them.
We'll have to bring them back.
Steven, you got to come to Springfield and have dinner with Marcia and I.
I know I do. I got to get down there. I love you guys. You know that.
Aw.
It's just been a pleasure. Tim, thank you so much for allowing us to be co-hosting tonight.
Tim.
We can have Steven back on if he's willing to.
Anytime, Tim. You know that.
Okay.
That would be awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
This has just been wonderful. So I have really, the last couple hours just flew by.
Steven,
I know, they went quick.
Steven, where could our listeners get a copy of your book?
They could get a copy of the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any major booksellers. They could get that one and Crazy, and any of the DVDs, by the way. They could get the DVDs through Amazon, or the Booth Brothers DVDs are through Amazon. You can actually watch them on Amazon now, and also you can get them through Spook TV.
Great.
Awesome. Ed, any closing comments?
No, I'm going to watch them before the next time that's for sure. So I'll be a little smarter. But I still have a shitload of questions sitting here that, then I've got the other questions that only author to author can ask. I don't want to ask on the air,
Right.
Someday we'll do that.
Right.
I could listen to talk all night. I got kind of carried away with just listening.
Right.
This is wonderful. Yeah. I enjoy being on Z Talk Radio with Tim Roxbury.
Yes,
Thank you, Tim.
You're
awesome, you guys. And Edwin. Good job finally finding the radio, man, with that voice.
My voice, your voice. God, you must do a lot of voiceovers.
I used to, by the way.
I'm doing a few,
I
but
believe yeah.
Stephen, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you for having me, and I always enjoy talking to you. You guys are the greatest, you know that.
Well, God bless you and your kids.
Well, God bless you too.
Thank you, Stephen. Hey, Stephen, if you want to stay on after I end the show, we can, talk further if you would like.
Sure, no problem.
All right. You have been listening to the Supernatural Realm Radio Show on the Z Talk Radio Network. We're going to have to end the show here, so we're going to say good night, guys. Good night, everybody.
Good night.